Christopher dropped a few things in the chat around MCP servers. For those of you who don't know the MCP, this was a protocol put out by Anthropic and recently embraced yesterday by OpenAI, but it's just like a way to list a service or a data source and have various AI agents or models like Claude be able to use it. So Christopher says version 2 of the MCP spec was released 2 days ago, adding auth support, enabling remote MCP servers to now run in the cloud instead of just on local developer's computer. OpenAI embraced it, etc. Big consensus now on MCP, which still misses payments and discoverability, which all of us can help solve via Lightning and Nostr. MCP should be a focus of the hackathon. That's a great point. Something that we've talked about in the past. There's also people working in like bridges with DVMs, data vending machines on Nostr and MCPs. But I 100% agree. Like there's, again, to this point we made earlier, there's a moment, there's a technological disruption happening. We know MCP servers, at least for the short term, have the mind share of developers, and there's no way to find them or to pay to use them. So that seems like a huge opportunity. And I think, Alex, if you scroll down one more, Renee, who works at Albi, says that, let's go, we're working on an MCP server for NWC for Nostr Wallet Connect here. So that's awesome. And
we were looking at, when I was working with D this week and Max, we were looking at MCPs because we were like, oh, are there good Lightning MCPs out there? And we started with Awesome MCP, which is kind of a directory of good MCPs, has a GitHub that then links to a website. And we went on the website and searched for Lightning. We found Albi has some, I don't know if it's just a rudimentary, but Albi has like the Lightning MCP server that we were able to find so far.
Sick.
So, and MCPs, in case people aren't following as closely, MCPs are like the servers that give like an LLM access to services. So if you wanted to have an MCP to run a Lightning service, it enables your LLM to be able to access the services of like a Lightning node. Yeah, if you build that in the MCP.
Well, and critically, you could have other kinds of MCPs. And so one example here that I think is extremely interesting, and I actually think this will probably get built because I know they're big Lightning and Nostr fans, is Coggy. Coggy Search, was we talked about, independent search, paid search. Their only way to pay today is, you buy a subscription or you buy credits. But potentially they have an MCP server, right? So you could imagine, it's not running a Lightning node or anything like that, but they just want a way to get paid, where if a bot says, hey, I need to use your search engine and it costs whatever, a quarter of a penny, whatever, 10 sats, 10 Bitcoin, as you guys would say, then they can do that. And I think that the payments for MCP is huge. I also think discoverability is massive. Where the hell do you find these? I mean, you were looking for the source. Awesome MCP is great, but like there should be like a standard of how do I discover these? Nostr seems like an interesting thing to use there.
Yeah, we've been talking about how Nostr, it has this social media use case. It's like a water cooler, and we gather around, and there's 40,000 weekly actives or whatever. But one of the points we were discussing yesterday, which I think is really what I get excited about, is it's just like a public broadcast messaging infrastructure, and
identity system.
Yeah, and if you can use it as such and think about it as such, and don't get too anchored on, yes, it has this kind of social media use case, but like, let's imagine the thousands of things that could be built with an open public messaging system. I was actually, one of the visitors I had into Presidio Bitcoin this week was this kind of a traditional venture capitalist who, he's into Bitcoin. He doesn't really do a lot of investments in that, but he'd never even heard of Nostr. And so I ended up explaining to him what it is and how it works. And he's like, wow. He's like, yes, this seems like something that would be needed if this works like this. So he's tuned into the fact that this kind of thing would be useful, even though we don't really have necessarily a huge diversity of applications. But I think we have to get those, whether it's SDKs or MCP servers, or make it easy so you can think about somebody was talking about the workout app that they were comparing workouts or posting. Maybe that was the BJJ thing, but where you don't have to think about Nostr and you can just use it, and it's kind of like the default. Like the LLMs choose it because it's like what everybody uses, and it's just easy. You don't have to think about it. And I think it's actually not I don't think it's an intractable problem. So Carnage, I was talking to Carnage on Nostr the other day, actually yesterday after our session, because he was talking about how probably just need lots of examples and lots of code examples, and then eventually the LLMs will train and figure out that this is workable. But I don't think you have to wait, because that's kind of diffuse. It's not very actionable. I think you can actually just the kind of stuff that Max Fang is doing with Lexi. He just has to decide, we want to make it work, and we want to make the use case work, and then get that into people's hands. So it's not this crazy diffuse problem. It's actually a very focused problem. You just need one person who cares about it, understands it well enough, and can push it forward. So I'm excited about that for Lightning, but I think I'm like newly realizing that Nostr has similar challenges that you can't really do things with it so easily. So Positive Blue 2, right, is Jordy? Yeah. Just before we got on here, when we were sort of, I don't know if it was tweeting or Nostring or whatever, but he said he's setting up where he can take Lightning payments with Replit Agent, and he's going to do like a 5-minute video or something, he said. So I think we're gonna have these tools ready to go like soon. We've got like some momentum of building around people focusing on this. So I think we got to get it for Nostr. It's like feels parallel to me to the Lightning stuff.
Yeah, I would love anyone that's interested in all the stuff we're doing with the hackathon. We need vibe coding ready to go with Lightning payments, Nostr Wallet Connect, and Nostr.
Yeah,
everyone's been put on notice.
You heard it here first.
Cool. So anything else on the? I know we dabble in mining from time to time. We talked a lot of proto mining stuff. Anything else that we should be looking for in kind of the mining space, or anything proto specific, or does that open up too many other lines of thought?
Yeah, nothing that really like is short and sweet. But I think that'll be an ongoing topic. It's the heart. I mean, mining's the heartbeat of Bitcoin. So, and I'd say it's one of the we don't really talk about risk factors to Bitcoin in the show, but I'd say like it's like I have it up there on probably a top 3 list of risks to Bitcoin as well. Long-term risks.
And you just mean like mining consolidation, like too much hash rate in one.
Yeah, whether it be centralization across a number of dimensions. I mean, we spoke briefly about Foundry, not that many foundries, but on a previous show, we talked about FPPS, like the sort of the economics of mining and pooling liquidity there. And that's why Bitmain has somewhere between 40 to 50% of the hash rate right now that they're controlling, which transactions get to go into blocks, and they custody the Bitcoin reward from those blocks for others. So that's alarming. But yeah, I'd say that that's like a top 3 risk in my mind.
What are the other?
Yeah, what are the other two?
I don't know. I don't have. The only other one is that I would name off the top of my head is just around custodial. Like everyone puts their Bitcoin in BlackRock ETF.
Oh, that was
which gets to a big theme that, and we talk a lot on this show about using Bitcoin, be it payments or AI or lava loans or whatever. All of those, none of those are popular yet. We're excited about all of them. When they do happen, it like dramatically reduces this risk. But if we go another 10, 15, 20 years where all Bitcoin is store of value, and that's what the vast majority of humans think of it as, use it as, which is a completely legitimate use case, and one that I think it's a given to us. Of course it's that. Of course it's valuable and great for that. But if that's all it is, 10, 15, 20 years from now, for most people, the benefits of like an ETF for most people are immense. And then there's massive centralization of custody. Then all of a sudden Bitcoin becomes very fragile because this story we've all been sold, which it can't change, it can change. Go read the BCAP paper, right. Bitcoin Consensus Analysis Project. Of course it can change. It's software. But what keeps it intact? And if all the coins are held by one person, then
Coinbase.
Yeah. So that's probably my number one. I haven't given it a lot of thought about like how I'd actually rank them, but those two would be like in my top 3 probably.
For the centralization, we talked about that early on in the show. How has your vibe changed on that? Do you think, I mean, obviously Coinbase still is the custodian for like almost all the ETFs for MicroStrategy, I believe. I'm not sure on that. Like, do you think do you feel roughly the same you did in November, December? Do you feel like it's getting better?
Sorry, in terms of custodial, custodying Bitcoin?
The risk of too much Bitcoin just being stored by a few custodians at max.
Yeah, it's hard to measure change in like 4 months or 6 months for this type of stuff. So I'd probably say it hasn't changed much. for both of these risk areas, I'm actually an optimist. I just point, if I'm asked like where does Bitcoin, we know Bitcoin has failed in year 2045. Why? Right. And well, those would be two big reasons as to why. But I remain quite optimistic we'll resolve that. But it really, I do think it hinges greatly on making Bitcoin usable for things beyond store of value, which is probably why we talk about it a lot on the show.
I'm glad we talked about it, because one thing I was going to say is a win, because we talk about it so much. It's very top of mind, and I have good arguments for it. So when that gentleman came in here and he's like, I like Bitcoin, but like, I get why nobody pays. That's fine. I was like, well, no, it's not fine. And we actually went down a path of, 5 or 10 minutes talking about it. And he came to the other end of it like, oh yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
that's good. I also should point out, we can't say, oh, Bitcoin needs to be used to save Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Period. That makes no sense.
It has to be
needs to deliver value to human beings.
100%.
Not necessarily. It needs to deliver value to someone.
Or right.
To agents.
Or to very good point. It has to deliver value. Period. And then if it does, obviously it will be used, and then it makes Bitcoin way more resilient. So that's why, and I think we do a good job of it, but we need to be critical. Like, it's easy you get very passionate about Bitcoin, and it's like, oh, of course I want to spend in Bitcoin because I love Bitcoin. It's like, well, but most people aren't like in love with it.
And that's not going to save the day.
Or AI. AI is going to be emotionless, right? AI is just going to be like,
what's the best
job to be done? What is my job to be done? Is this the best tool? Yes. Awesome.
I actually think hearing you say all that is making me even more bullish on the AI use case, particularly with the AIs running mints or custoding the Bitcoin for us. Because if we get the AIs using the tools first, they're going to have to build their own banks, which is very organic. And I could see that's the kind of thing. A lot of the sort of old world stuff, everyone uses Coinbase because that's the safe, choice. It's like it's already kind of been de-risked for other financial institutions. Like that kind of like making a shift there requires a ton of either, doing a lot of compliance work, shifting public opinion, that's slow. But if you build an entire alternative ecosystem of agents using Bitcoin, building out their own banks, that can like go from 0 to like whatever, some really large number fast. So AI banks, let's go.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we are at the end of our time. Yeah, right on the money.